Samskrite tirite pandu prita bala prajavada vadu yusmat krite bahu klesham kapta toka patimuhu. As far as my daughter-in-law Kunti is concerned, upon the great General Pandu's death, she became a widow with many children, and therefore she suffered greatly. And when you were growing up, she suffered a great deal because of your actions. Purport by His Divine Grace. These sufferings of Kunti are doubly lamented. She suffered greatly because of early widowhood, and to get her minor children grown up in the royal family. When her children were growing up, she continued to suffer because of her son's actions. So her suffering continued. This means that she was destined to suffer by problems. And this one has to tolerate without being disturbed. Actually, this is a very, very wonderful section of the Bhagavatam. And there are many verses here prior to this one. Bhishma Dev, passing is not an ordinary thing. Its previous verses describe all the great personalities. Someone has their microphone on. All the great personalities that there were so many present. Everybody should unmute their microphone, otherwise I get feedback. There were so many great personalities present at the passing of Bhishma Dev. Bhishma Dev had been given the benediction that he could decide when he was going to leave this world. That's a long history that I won't get into today. But suffice it to say that Bhishma Dev, one of the Mahajans, one of the great authorities in spiritual knowledge. So when he was lying on his deathbed, so many great personalities came. I have it here. I have two different books here ready to go. And it was described that Rtadhvaja, Rtadhvaja, Parashuram, Ashista, Indrapatita, Astita, Gautama, Atri, Kushi, Sudasha, Sukadev, Goswami, Kashapa, and Girasha. Many, many great sages. Yes, everyone was there. And even Lord Krishna appeared at that time. So this is not unusual for the passing. I'm trying to get so I can see everybody's picture rather than the verse. I got the verse in front of me. Can you make it so I can see everyone rather than the verse? So actually, Bhishma Dev desired to see Krishna before him at the time of death. This is one of his wishes. And so, as a verse of the purport says, that the sufferings of Queen Kunti are doubly lamented. It's kind of unique where Srila Prabhupada is saying that the sufferings of someone are lamentable, because the first instruction from Krishna to Arjuna, when Arjuna Shishate, he accepted Krishna as his being, he accepted being a disciple of Krishna. And it's described that at that time, all friendly talks end, and Krishna was to take the position of a teacher for someone who was in great duress. Again, I'll ask if you can remove the verse from the screen so I can see everyone who's present, who's ever managing the Zoom call. So it's lamentable, but Krishna told Arjuna, Asochan Anvasodhashtam Bhagam Vedam Shavasase, that you are speaking like a learned man, but you don't know what is worthy of lamentation. That those who are wise, they don't lament for the living, they don't lament for those who have passed on. And here Srila Prabhupada is explaining that Queen Kunti, her situation is doubly lamentable. A lot of things that we read in the scripture have two different applications. Lamentation itself is purifying. Just like what would you say, recently we lost one of our great Vaishnavas here. She was one of the original devotees that went to India with the group in 1970, what Srila Prabhupada called his dancing white elephants. She was there. Actually, her first child was the first ISKCON devotee child born in India, a Western ISKCON devotee born in India. He was born in Calcutta. And she was a great Vaishnava. When the Panchatattva were brought to Mayapur, the Mayapur management had her come to India to paint the Panchatattva deities. A very, very great soul. Although she was always playing a role in the back, you wouldn't hardly notice her. And so they're a great lamentation. And so this type of lamentation is purification. It purifies everyone. Over lamentation becomes a source of sense gratification. We don't want to let the lamentation, overcome our spiritual understanding. I mean, our spiritual understanding can kind of black out or go fuzzy a little bit, but the idea is that that lamentation is purification. And we can see in these verses the nature of a Vaishnava. Of course, we see so many great personalities coming. Even Lord Krishna appeared. When Bhishma was there. And one of the interesting things in these previous verses is that Bhishma Dev was lying on a bed of arrows, but still he knew how to receive everyone properly, how to receive Vaishnava, how to receive spiritual master, how to receive everyone is actually a very important aspect of our Vaishnava culture. I want to make sure described in the scriptures that even an enemy, if an enemy of someone comes to the home, they should feel very comfortable. This is a very advanced. I would say advanced. I mean, if somebody was an enemy of mine and they came to my door, how I would receive him so that they feel comfortable. Very, very interesting situation. And the Lord being there. So when the sons of Pandu, the Pandavas, were sitting there, it described that they sit there silently in front of Bhishma Dev. They were overtaken by affection for their dying grandfather. They were overtaken. And seeing Bhishma Dev, Bhishma Dev congratulated them with feelings, as the verse goes, and there were tears of ecstasy in Bhishma Dev's eyes. I remember a very close friend of mine, His Holiness Rtadhvaja Swami, when he was afflicted, or whatever the word is, under the control of cancer. and Vaishnava would visit him, and tears would come to his eyes, tears of affection for them would come to his eyes. And this type of affection for Vaishnavas is understood to be in a very advanced stage, in one sense. It's not a material situation. Because Vaishnavas understand that we have eternal relationship with each other, and even though it's a brief moment of separation, when we feel in that separation, it becomes very, very strong. And Bhishma Dev was feeling that upon his departure, feeling the sadness of those who were around him, feeling his departure was coming soon. These are natural, these are literally natural affections that the devotees have for each other. I've used this here verse. I go into this a lot. Oops, what did I do? I go into this a lot because in the previous chapter, and this is a verse I've quoted so many times in the purport, I've quoted so many times, you should know it by heart. But in the previous chapter, the prayers of Queen Kunti, where Queen Kunti prays to Madhupati, the Lord of Madhu. She prays to him to as the Ganges always flows towards the sea without hindrance, let my attraction be constantly drawn unto you without being diverted to anyone else. Queen Kunti was related to both families, the Kauravas and the Pandavas. And Prabhupada explains in the purport that the perfection of pure devotional service is attained when all attention is diverted towards the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So it seems like it's Queen Kunti's prayer to not be diverted to anything else means sometimes we take it to mean that just ignore all familial relationships, all sentiments of the heart, all these different things, but Prabhupada clears that up in the purport where he says to cut off the ties of all other affection does not mean complete negation of the finer elements like affection for someone else. This is not what it means, Prabhupada says. We could take this to mean something very strict, very rigid, almost impersonal to a certain extent, to not have any type of emotion. Srila Prabhupada continues in the purport to that 42nd verse of the 8th chapter. He says, to not have affection for somebody else is not possible because a living being, whoever it may be, must have this feeling of affection for others because this is a symptom of life. The symptom of life is that we have affection for other living entities, especially for the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. We have great affection. And as Vaishnavas, we actually know that every living entity, whomever he may be, is the son of the Supreme Lord. Krishna is the seed-giving father of every living entity. And the Vaishnava sees Krishna present within everything, even the external energy. That this material external energy is a, well, how do you say it? As a divine energy. It's the external energy of Krishna, but it's coming from Krishna. Therefore, this energy is divine. And whatever we see it in connection to Krishna. What to speak of a living entity, no matter what form they may have taken, we see that. The other day, I had to chase a bug out of my room, and I put a cup over the top of it, and I slid a little piece of paper underneath it, and carried it out the door, and I threw it into the bushes, and I said, Hare Krishna. It's a good thing you're in my room because I didn't kill you. Anybody else would have just smushed you and just wiped you up and threw you in the dustbin. But as devotees, we learn every living entity, whether it be a bug body or a human body or animal body, sometimes probably would say beast body, each and every one of those has an individual soul just like you or I. And so we don't want to see the suffering of any of them. Some we need to avoid. In other words, Prabhupada said you don't go and slap a sleeping tiger in the face, thinking that the tiger is my brother, so let me give him a hug. No, we have to utilize our God-given intelligence, and so Prabhupada explains that the symptoms of life, such as desire, anger, hankering, feelings of attraction, cannot be annihilated. These things are deeply rooted within the nature of the individual soul. And now, in this conditioned life, we tend to base everything on the bodily conception of life. Just like they call the citizens of a particular area, they call them praja, they're citizens, but now we only consider the humans to be the citizens. We don't consider the plants, the animals, the this, the that. All these different living entities are also praja, they're also parts of the community. And Prabhupada would often condemn that in a way where he'd say, why you are killing the innocent animals? And so we have this here in this verse, going back to the verse that we're on today. But I'll just keep this one like that. So, yeah, okay. No, this goes like this. Just like I made a mistake. To err is human, to forgive is divine. But remain in the divine platform of forgiveness. So, in today's verse, where as far as when Bhishma is talking about his daughter-in-law Kunti, Kunti had a special relationship with Bhishma Dev. Everyone, practically the entire community had a special relationship with Bhishma Dev. He was grandfather Bhishma. Everyone knows grandfathers are very kind. My grandfather was so kind to me. I lamented so heavily at his passing when I was a tween, becoming a teen. And he acknowledges that she became a widow at a young age, a very young age. She became a widow, and she still had to raise her children. In a situation where the children were actually the rightful heir to the throne, but they're in a situation where they were trying to, probably uses the word usurp, trying to usurp the we had where there was where they to usurp the kingdom from them. And so what happened is that there was so much suffering. Their cousins tried so many ways to disrupt their legal ownership of the kingdom. And when they were young, Kunti had to take care of them. When they were older, they were the due owners of the kingdom, and she had to, what would you say, undergo sufferings for all the, what would you say, different mishaps that were there. And so Bhishma Dev, he's not saying, okay, Kunti, this is your karma, suck it up, it's okay, just, don't worry about it. This isn't the nature of a Vaishnava. Of course, we can understand Socham, what's that verse? Matrashpa Shasti Kunteya Sitasna Sukadugada Aramatalion Chastam Satikshas Bharatan, that the so-called happiness and distress that we feel in this world, they are changing like the winter and summer season. And it's actually due to sense perception. Our senses are perceiving something as happiness, they perceive something as distress. That's all according to the modes of nature we have. I've explained it before. If you're in a polar bear body and you end up at the equator, it's too hot. And if you're an equator resident and you end up where the polar bears live, it's too cold. That's all due to sense perception. And so the Krishna tells Arjuna, one must tolerate them without being disturbed. So that in other words, it's not that we don't experience the different sensual, what would you say, it's not that we we're devoid of different sensual experiences. We just understand that for this time I'm being trained to understand a particular lesson through this physical form which I've received this lifetime, and I have the opportunity to grow, or to just say I'm a victim and suffer. Basically, I'm reading in the third canto of the Bhagavatam. I just finished 5, 6, and 7, which describe the creation of the material manifestation and how everything has purpose, how everything is there for us. The material energy has two purposes. One is for us to try to enjoy separately from Krishna. We can try to enjoy in this material world. It's all set up. We can try. It basically does not work. We get a little bit of sense gratification, or we may feel a little bit of joy, a little bit of happiness sometimes. But that no matter what it is, and no matter how long it lasts, it's going to be removed. It's going to be taken away. We can't avoid that. And so that so-called happiness that we experience, we're meant to learn to tolerate that according to that verse. But getting back to the point I was trying to make is that the living entity, the devotee of the Lord, he understands these things, and they're not callous. Even though in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, there's several verses, 19 through 23, I do believe, and in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that's the verse in the 6th chapter where it describes the state of trance samadhi, where one is unaffected by any. That's a big long list of things. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that one is even callous to the loss of a loved one. Callous doesn't mean in that sense that he has no feeling. Callous means that he understands the nature of the material energy and how it works, and therefore they remain fixed in the heart in the relationship of understanding with Krishna. There's a difference. They're different for the Vaishnava. And so going back, asochan anvasochastram, that you're lamenting for something which is not worthy of lamentation. Very interesting point, because here we're told not to lament, but here Bhishma Dev, one of the Mahajans, there's 12 Mahajans, and he is lamenting. He's lamenting for the situation that Kunti was in, at the sufferings that she endured. In the previous verse, it's described for the Pandavas, when Bhishma was reflecting on the, what would you say, the plight, or that their would you say, their destiny. He said, you do not deserve to remain alive under the tribulations, yet you are protected. What terrible sufferings and what terrible injustices do good souls suffer. But we can remember verses in the first canto where Cricket Maharaj approaches the bull Dharma, who is being afflicted by Kali, beating the bull, and the bull says, I cannot say what is the cause. Here, so we see these things, and we can see there's lessons to be learned. There's an ultimate issue, and there's the issue of our natural tendencies, our natural propensities that we're meant to utilize this form of lamentation to get purification, to come to the point of fully understanding our relationship with Krishna. So in the purport, Prabhupada is explaining in that part where Bhishma Dev is speaking to Yudhisthira, that Bhishma could understand that the terrible sufferings that Maharaj Yudhisthira, he was put in difficulty by injustice only. But we don't, it's very hard to say that, this is injustice. And we can learn the compassionate nature that the Vaishnava has. We don't write things off just like, I'm sorry, it's your karma. No, we have empathy, we have sympathy for everyone's situation in this world, and we try to better it. We try to better it. Sometimes it's just sit and listen when someone's in duress. You just sit and listen. When they inquire or they ask something, what do you think? You give them some information. You begin slowly extracting the spiritual knowledge. We ask open-ended questions. What can I do for you? You don't say, do you need anything? They'll obviously say no. You say, what can I do for you? They open up, they expand their view of your question. Not a distinct question, but an open-ended question. And so this verse here is very nice. Again, going back to the point that she had to raise her children in the royal family, that was due to come to them, but she was trying to be taken away, and that means that she was destined to suffer by providence, and this one has to tolerate without being disturbed. So we have this. It's almost like dichotomy. It's almost a very, very interesting point where Bhishma is saying that these things shouldn't they happen to you, and it's okay to be disturbed, and these things are destined by providence, and you shouldn't be disturbed. And so we learn this art in Krishna consciousness to be facilitated by spiritual knowledge, so that we learn what is to be done and what is not to be done under any and every circumstance. It's hard to, I wanted to do the next verse is also very nice. I was told that's already been assigned to somebody. But we'll go with this one, and I know this is a very active group, and I usually speak for 30 minutes prior to opening it up, because otherwise it'll go 3 hours rather than an hour and a half. There's a very, very active group here with this group. So anyone have any? I mean, Gary Priya always invites me, and there's always usually an exciting discussion or interesting discussion. So I open it up for reflections and takeaways from these verses that we went over, and see where it goes.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Maharaj. So at this point, we ask every devotee to just raise up your hand and have your questions directed to Maharaj. Well, Maharaj, we say thank you for the class. Unfortunately, and I think I'm still having a little bit of internet connection issue today. So I'm sorry for
you have internet connection?
Yeah, my internet connection is not strong enough. I don't know why.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But okay, we have Rtadhvaja Bhumi. You can unmute and ask your question, please. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. There's one specific line in this on the purport where at the very end, so her sufferings continue. This means that she was destined to suffer by providence. And this one has to tolerate without being disturbed. That specific part that says she was destined to suffer by providence versus karma.
Providence is karma.
So that is her karma, but providence, yeah, I'm a little bit confused about that. Or can you expand a little bit more on that specific subject? Her karma, sure, versus the desires of providence.
Providence, the protective care of God. This is the meaning of the word. That's the nice thing about Kindle. All you have to do is touch the word, and the definition comes up. The protective care of God or of nature as a spiritual power. They found their trust in divine providence to be the source of comfort. So in this sense, we can understand that material energy is acting a certain way. We had a long discussion with this group one time, which we don't want to open up again, where different personalities appear in Krishna Lila for particular reasons. And are they karmically there, or are they sent by Krishna to do this? I forgot to do the research on it that I promised to do 2 months ago. So I'm not going to open that topic up. But suffice it to say is that for this whole thing to unfold, Kunti played a major role, and it was due to providence, which we can say, as the definition, as a different definition says, the protective care of God. And even our karma, in other words, I say, if we're receiving, when we use the word karma, we usually use it in a negative sense. We don't use it, oh, it's my karma to get a raise today. It's my karma to, my boss gave me the day off. It's my karma that my son got into grad school. You only think karma is that, I got a flat tire. It's my karma. And so, but all the actions and reactions we undergo, in this lifetime are good or bad. They're a protective care of God, because each and every action or reaction that we experience is coming to us for lessons. Now we can choose to learn those lessons, or we can choose not to learn those lessons. At one point in my talk, which I forgot to mention, was that whatever we experience in this lifetime, like I was saying, we have different choice. We have a choice. The choice is, how do we react to those things that are due to us by providence, due to us by our previous actions. We have a particular nature, and that nature is going to act a certain way, but we can gain spiritual knowledge, and we can learn to react or respond to certain situations that we have in this world. We can learn to respond to those in a way that will benefit us greatly, or we can just be in the lamentation. I just touched on it a little bit when I was speaking. We can just lament, oh, why me? And that becomes a source of sense gratification for us. Being a victim is being a victim, which we can say we are to a certain extent, but to over-victimize ourselves is a sense of sense gratification. And we want to avoid that. We want to just say, okay, Krishna, I am yours. I'm yours. So Providence and her situation was unique in this whole episode when she gave birth to all the Pandavas, which is like, my gosh, to have that kind of powerful sons. You'd think that you would never have a worry or a want in the world, but yet, even with that type of powerful family, still so much bliss, so much bliss. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Anyone else? I'm seeing. Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj. I have a follow-up question to Mother Vrajabomi's question, because usually, like you were explaining, when we talk of providence, it's like we're talking about nature. I'm sorry, you may hear some loud sound. It's raining really hard here. But one definition of providence is God. Another definition is nature. For us, we understand there is a difference between God and nature, even though they appear similar. But God is male, Mother Nature is female. So if Srila Prabhupada is saying here that Mother Kunti was destined by providence to go through this suffering, is Srila Prabhupada referring to nature or referring to God, Krishna?
There's no difference between nature and God, because Krishna. Oh, another spam call. Nature It's under the direct Daivihesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Drantiya. Material nature is under the direction of Krishna. It's under the direction of Krishna. And that nature acts according to the direction of Krishna. It's set in motion. It is Shakti, it is Durga, and Durga has that service to engage accordingly. So yes, it's under the direction of Krishna through the agency of material nature. So you can say nature is feminine, and you can say Krishna, Prakriti and Purusha. Everyone is Prakriti. Krishna is the only Purusha. He's the only enjoyer. We're the enjoyed. Krishna is the predominator. We're the predominated. And so we can get into the, what do they call it, syntax, I don't know, the meanings of the words and stuff like that, but it basically is Krishna. And either directly or indirectly through material nature or directly through the hand of Krishna, everything happens. Krishna is present everywhere. There's nowhere that Krishna is not present. But I can hear it raining. It must really be raining because
yes, it's raining quite heavily. Yeah.
I can hear it on my computer.
Yes. Well, another follow-up to the same question, because I have read and I've also heard from other speakers on this particular platform that Mother Kunti is just like the Pandavas. It's just like Arjuna. They always follow Krishna to wherever he goes to enact his pastimes. So Mother Kunti is like an eternal follower of Krishna.
This is the topic I said we weren't going to get involved in because we got involved in it last time, and I didn't do the research that I said I would do for you. And so I would prefer not to get into that because there's a lot of opinions, and
Okay.
it's described in the scriptures that there's different commentaries by different acharyas, and some may say they went left and some may say they went right, but they all end up at the same point in the end. So no need to overindulge in that particular subject matter without coming, which will end this discussion. Is that Narayani Devidasi from Miami?
No, I think from Chicago.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
We have a Narayani Devidasi, a very close friend of mine from Miami. Her husband, Harish Chandra, and they have two nice sons, and they were.
Okay, Maharaj, then my question then would be, Krishna sometimes tells us to be unaffected by whatever goes on in this material world, just like the seasonal changes, they come and go. And again, he also encourages us to tolerate, like Lord Chaitanya encouraged us to tolerate as the tree. I mean, if one is not affected, then how does one tolerate? We only tolerate when we get affected. So if you can draw a distinction or throw more light on why sometimes Krishna says we should not be affected by what's going on in this material world, and other times it tells us to tolerate. Hare Krishna.
So what it means to be not affected is not that when it's hot, you don't feel hot, and when it's cold, you don't feel cold. I mean, if you're in your original swarup, if in this body you're like living in the spiritual world, it's like the Goswamis were at Radha Kund and they were doing service, and Radharani actually came and held an umbrella over because they were, there's these pastimes and stuff like that where they're so distinct, what would you say, separated from this existence and actually existing in another realm, then they may not notice. But to not be disturbed means that during heat and cold, happiness and distress, honor and dishonor, all these different things, one doesn't lose focus of his spiritual self. In other words, we don't lose the focus of our understanding that I'm not this material body, I'm the spirit soul inside. These things are external. And because they're external, I can understand, even though I may feel the differences, I'm to remain equipoised. I'm meant to remain equipoised in all situations. And we strive for that. We strive for that equal vision within the heart. And so we are being affected by the heat and cold. It's fame or infamy. These things are very, very hard to deal with. And so we don't lose sight of our relationship with Krishna. That's one of the points that brought up in that 6th chapter, 19 to 23, where Prabhupada makes it very, very clear that all these different attributes that one has who's in samadhi, who is fixed in that state of trance, means that they're fixed in their eternal relationship with Krishna, even though while residing in this material world and interacting with the material, what would you say, elements or the material actions and reactions and stuff like that, and we just remain fixed in Krishna. And they say, okay, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It's cold, it's hot, it's this, it's that. And so it's not that we just become, when we engage in devotional service, we become stones. But the heart has to be there. We can't give up our, the changing of the heart, Chaitadarpana Marjana as the heart's becoming cleansed, the heart becomes more compassionate, and we begin to understand how to engage that heart. To be a heartfelt person. A heartfelt person is one who has deep gratitude, deep compassion, a deep understanding of our situation. And by understanding our situation, we can understand the joys and sufferings of other people's situation. And so we remain compassionate and at the same time aloof. We have that sincerity, we have that sensation of compassion for every living entity, but we remain aloof because we do as much as we can possibly do to help everyone spiritually and even on a material level. We try to help. I've helped many Vaishnavas through physical discomforts. As a service, even my mother, who's part and parcel of Krishna, but she wasn't a Vaishnava, I had to serve when she was cancer ridden. And so the idea is that it wasn't like she's not a devotee, she blasphemed Prabhupada so many times, and she said so many ill things about this kind. No, she was my mother. It was my duty to serve her, and it was a pleasure. We respond and react like Prahlad Maharaj. That's a pretty elevated state there, Rtadhvaja. I don't know if I ended up.
Thank you very much, Maharaj, for
in a pit. Rtadhvaja just put down on the chat. She said that takeaway, we respond / react like Prahlad Maharaj. I don't know if I was thrown in a pit of the snakes, that I could remain sober and detached like Prahlad Maharaj. I don't know if I was thrown off a cliff. I don't know if I was thrown in the vat of boiling oil. I would just Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I don't know I could do that. I think I'd be like Krishna. And I don't know. I don't think I would expect to remain unburned or unpoisoned or untrampled by a herd of elephants and stuff like that. I don't expect that type of. It could happen.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. Thank you for the answer. If anybody has any question, you can raise up your hand and then you ask your question.
Tom Sawyer has the microphone up. Are they going to ask a question?
Do you have a question, Tom Sawyer?
Oh, he just accidentally had the microphone.
Oh, okay. Then I'll mute him.
Narayani David, can you show me, can you put your camera on? I just seen you go by and I think I might recognize you for some reason. I'm not sure. And Gary Dariya Puja, I haven't seen you yet, so I'd like to see you.
Maharaj, I maybe while others prepare to ask their question, this topic of Krishna telling Arjuna not to lament, and he's lamenting for what is not worth lamenting for. In other words, Arjuna was lamenting for his external relations. And Krishna was telling him, this is not worthy of lamenting for. But you just gave example of your mother, how you have to care for her. So sometimes in devotional service, sometimes we become, I'm not sure if I'll be okay to use the word callous, but I think we sometimes become callous that we don't really care for the external needs of a devotee. Like whatever happens, we say, oh, it's Krishna's mercy. So what is your advice to us as devotees to understand it that caring for the so-called physical external needs are also relevant in our Krishna consciousness?
I mean, caring for the devotees or caring for our family, doing our duties as family members?
No.
Caring for devotees in particular.
Well, caring for devotees is a privilege. If you ever have, like Tom Sawyer's got the microphone, to have the privilege to care for a Vaishnava in any way, shape, or form is a privilege that one should never not take advantage. I don't use it, we should always serve Vaishnava. Vaishnava Seva is, practically speaking, one of the most prominent ways for gaining Krishna's mercy. Vaishnavas are more dear to Krishna than Krishna is dear to himself. And by serving them, we become very dear to Krishna. Very, very dear to Krishna. I was invited to care for His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj when he had prostate cancer. A wonderful experience, one of several months. I was invited to take care of His Holiness Gunadhvaja Maharaj. He was in Vrindavan and he started to decline. Next day I was on a flight, Dallas, Tokyo, Delhi, and with His Grace Gurjan Prabhu and Radhanath Maharaj. We go back to Govinda Maharaj and others. We had this wonderful opportunity, and the association was extraordinary. So much so that it was broadcast. It was broadcast all over. It was like, what do they call it? Zoomed all over the world with Gunadhvaja Maharaj. And His Holiness David Mitra Swami wrote to the four of us, Radhanath Maharaj, Govinda Maharaj, Gurjan, and myself. He said that this is what was his words? This is the perfection of ISKCON, where we get together, no false ego, only desire is to get a God brother back home, back to God. Or if a Vaishnava is, I also had the opportunity here in Dallas several years ago, I can't remember what year, where a young man all of a sudden had a brain tumor, but all of a sudden one day he woke up and he couldn't read. And immediately he had to go to the doctor and had to have the tumor removed from his head. I just stayed at the hospital hours and hours and hours a day just to, what would you say? I don't want to say entertain. They called it entertainment, but just to be there to try to give a positive influence to the family under that stressful situation arranged by Providence for the, and arranged, and that was my benefit. I mean, it was so wonderful for me to be there, just sitting and chanting and talking and being with them and trying to keep things, what would you say, positive. I mean, what a wonderful seva. And we can extend that out. We can extend that further. As wherever we go, whomever we meet, we try to give them the opportunity to find Krishna consciousness. We want to share this information with anyone and everyone. Ultimately, everyone is a devotee of Krishna. Some we know it, some don't. And so we have that responsibility to expand our vision, to see everyone. But when it comes chance to serve a Vaishnava, please take it up.
Thank you very much, Maharaj.
I had other opportunities too, but I mean, that was just two that stand out.
Yes.
Well, there's Duti Gopi Devi Dasi Jai. She was also present at she just came, I think she ran all the way from New Delhi, faster than the wind, to be there with Gunagar Maharaj. She was very dear to Gunagar Maharaj. She plays drum. She's very good drum. She's loves Vrindavan. She knows every nook and corner of Vrindavan. She knows scripture. Whatever she reads, she remembers. And she was there dancing and chanting like a madwoman when Maharaj was passing later that night. And we've become very, very close friends ever since. Very dear Vaishnava, who I have the opportunity to serve. Somehow Krishna's blessed me with service and all the Vaishnavas. It's amazing. I mean, just to exemplify the idea of seva. 2 days ago, I think it was when I was driving. I listened to lectures when I drive, and I listen to lectures when I honor Prasadam. And Prabhupada was saying that he sees all of his disciples as his spiritual master, that his spiritual master has allowed him so many Vaishnavas to serve. And so, by the grace, we have people in our association that we serve. Sometimes it's by instruction, sometimes it's by friendship, sometimes, whatever it may be. We take that opportunity and we are grateful and we relish that opportunity as much as we can. And when we say relish, it's not like a form of sense gratification. It's a form of a privilege to have the time and space to actually associate with like-minded people who have an interest of going back home, back to Godhead. Now, Duti Gopi is again quoting scripture here. It's by your mercy, Maharaj. I'm somehow trying. Thank you, Maharaj. Krishna, Krishna. So this is an opportunity. Vaishnava Seva, very, very wonderful.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Yes.
I guess we've been on for an hour.
Yes, about an hour.
Duti Gopi is a great Vaishnava who took me all around Vrindavan. She's very merciful, very kind-hearted.
Yes. Well, Maharaj, I had asked this question before, and I don't think I got a very satisfactory answer. So if I may ask you again. The question is, we know Bhishma Dev is one of the 12 Mahajans. And for such a person, it doesn't matter when and under what circumstance he leaves his body. But when his body was pierced by these numerous arrows and was lying on these arrows as a bed, of course, he had the boon to leave his body whenever he chose to. But he decided not to leave his body at that time because he said to himself, the sun is in the south, which is inauspicious. I will wait till when the sun is in the north. And so he lied on the bed of arrows for, I think, 58 days or so when the sun got to the north before he left his body. So what are we to learn from that? Because as a Mahajan, he doesn't really need to leave his body under a particular, like, we say, appropriate or convenient condition. But he did so. He waited till when the sun was in the north before he left his body.
That way, the Pandavas and everybody had time to regroup so that he could be there. Oh, are you still talking?
No, I'm done. Sorry.
Oh, I thought I couldn't hear, but I thought I saw movement. I'm just going to speculate here a little bit. Give time for the Pandavas and everybody to get everything reorganized after the battle, and so that they could all be there and wouldn't be an inconvenience for any of them. But Bhishma had that opportunity, and so taking advantage of something, taking advantage of a situation, just to show by example. Sometimes, also, we don't only serve Vaishnavas. I just read in the 8th chapter yesterday, today, that the Vaishnavas, they're not, if you leave your body when the sun goes this way, or the night, or the fortnight, or this way, that way, then you get benefit. And if you don't, then you don't get benefit. But in the next verse, it says Vaishnavas really don't worry about when they leave. Although they know these two paths, they're not really concerned about it. But if the opportunity comes, you can take advantage of it. I don't know. I mean, I do know one thing, that sometimes people can extend their life by sheer determination. Sometimes, I have a very close friend who father was passing away and the son wasn't present, and the mother said, wait, your son's not here, he had to go out. And so the father was able to sustain himself until the son returned. Also, I had my father's sister. She wanted to be present at my brother's wedding, and she was riddled with cancer. And literally by her will, she made it to the wedding. And then as soon as the wedding was over, within a few days, she just, that determination wasn't there. So as Vaishnavas, we may have that. We can see it. It seems like, I can't say for sure, but it just seems like sometimes people by sheer determination can extend a little bit. Although scriptures say you can extend for a moment, but maybe that extension is get our willpower to stay, to do some little extra service like that. So we can say like that. And Bhishma Dev was certainly a Mahajan. He definitely had that ability.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Yuti Gopi Devi Dasi can probably give you a real definite, defined answer to that question, because you're a great Mahabharata scholar. No, I'm embarrassing her. I'm sorry, Duty. I shouldn't embarrass you. So we've gone for an hour.
We've gone for an hour, yes, Maharaj. So, if nobody has any question for Maharaj, then we may ask all devotees to unmute, and then we chant big Hare Krishna to express our appreciation for Maharaj.
Yeah, please unmute.
So you can all unmute, we chant Hare Krishna.
Maybe Sean, turn on your cameras if you can. Oh, there you go. Oh, yeah, there you go.
Okay, Narayani turned on her camera.
Yeah, no, but before she's got that artificial background and she was being absorbed in Lord Jagannath.
Yeah, she was almost merged into Lord Jagannath.
Oh, Hare Krishna, Jagannath Krishna. I was supposed to get to see you yesterday, so I got to see you virtually today.
Yeah.
we meet every Ekadasi. We only live like 10 minutes away from each other. We see each other twice a month. Now I'm in exile because I came in contact with COVID. Somebody who had tested positive for COVID. So I'm in a new environment, and I'm sitting here in a little apartment. I have no symptoms other than no symptoms. I mean, no symptoms other than I'm just sitting by myself. I have my Kindle, I have my phone, I have my computer.
Oh my God.
Oh, wait a second. Faster, sorry. I'm
downstairs. I was 5119.
Yes. I'm sorry, I'm giving class to Africa. I just had my phone on. Yes.
Okay, I'll
Okay, I will.
Sorry, Maharaj, you can unmute. Okay, thank
Someone
you.
was delivering something to my room. I just noticed he was calling me, and I can't go outside. I have to get it from the door.
Well, Maharaj, we hope and pray that you just self-isolate without catching the COVID. We pray you don't.
I read a lot of Bhagavatam. Yes, it was really blissed out.
Hare Krishna.
And then I saw a couple of really nice devotee, what do you call it, videos? Really nice, really nice, really informative. So Krishna has ways to keep us occupied. So I'll take your leave.
Okay, thank you so much. So we ask all devotees, we chant big Hare Krishna to express our appreciation to Maharaj. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. His Holiness Rtadhvaja Maharaj ki jai. Jai. Hare Krishna.
Because Just like tornado there.
Cha. Mm. Ah, yeah. Something I like. Madness. Oh, Yes, Rtadhvaja. Good. Krishna.
Oh, God.